This is Jake Bernhardt with the Whip Snakes and the PLL, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber. Sidearm whip. Scars. Now in front. Fennell scores. Paul Rabel splits two and scores.
Carly O'Miller showing off those shifty skills.
Kelly, not shy, bounces one home. What a start.
Welcome to Pro Lacrosse Talk, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam. Together we're bringing you interviews with your favorite players and coaches, as well as news from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. We're stoked to have you guys for another episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk. I'm here with my co-host Adam. Adam, what's going on today?
I'm good, man. Hanging out in a parking lot in Southern Maryland, waiting for my college fair to start up later tonight. So excited to talk some lacrosse in between.
Awesome. Yeah, we got some big topics this week, including discussing the second round of the PLL Playoffs. The championship is now set. You attended that, so you'll have some post-game interviews for us as well from the players and coaches from all those teams that participated this past weekend. You were there with our contributor, Dan Arestia. He also has an article up on our website, The Best People to Get Mic'd Up. So definitely check that out after this podcast. We'll also be talking the MLL games. We're winding down the MLL season. We'll have your fantasy lacrosse fix as well this week as we head into the week 3 and the final week of fantasy lacrosse. With that, let's go into our fast break. Why don't you tell us the games and what happened in them this week, Adam?
Sure thing. Starting with the MLL, this didn't matter for playoff implications, but it did when it comes to the standings. In Game 1, the Bayhawks defeated the Outlaws in a close one, 11-10. In Game 2, wasn't as close. The Cannons trounced the Blaze 19-9 before the playoffs get started for MLL. And in the PLL playoffs, in the semifinal contest, the Redwoods defeated the first place Chaos 12-7 to advance to the championship to take on the Whip Snakes. And in the consolation bracket for the first overall draft pick, the Archers defeated the Chrome 12-10 to move on to Philadelphia to take on the Atlas to see who will get the first overall pick. So that's your fast break for the week.
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend of lacrosse. You know, we had 4 games. We're getting down to the wire for the PLL and the MLL. So we're trying to make the most of the field lacrosse that we do have left. You know, we talked about how you were at the game, Adam. I kind of want to dive into this Archers Chrome game first, even though that was the second game, because this was interesting to me. And I think the draft bracket is a good idea in theory, but I can't help but think it really hurts some really bad teams. And I wouldn't say the Chrome are a really bad team, but I do think the way they've been playing the last 3 weeks, they are definitely on a lower tier than the rest of these teams. It is something to be said about, you know, gaining the first overall pick to help a team that's losing. So, again, I like this draft bracket format, but kind of to play devil's advocate here, do you think it's kind of bad for some of these teams that really are struggling and really need, you know, maybe that number 1 overall pick?
Sure, I can definitely see where you're coming from that sense with teams who are at the bottom, potentially staying at the bottom. One thing I would like to mention when it comes to this situation is we just really don't have all of the logistics, what the off-season's going to look like. Is there going to be an expansion to, say, 8 teams next year? What does player movement look like? So without that knowledge, too, it's tough for me to say whether I think this is a good long-term fit for the league or not. I do like the sense that, you know, teams aren't going to be able to tank to get the first overall pick. And this is a unique year, I think, when there isn't necessarily before the collegiate season an obvious number 1 overall selection. Maybe it is TD Ireland if a team that gets the first overall pick is in need of a face-off man. But there are so many strong players, whether that's Jeff T, Grant Amon, or some of the guys from UVA. It's pretty unique that there's not one guy that absolutely sticks out. But for me, just kind of looking at this with windows closed, I think it may be a negative for those teams to continue to improve that are at the bottom. But I'd like to see some more information before I kind of make my final call on that one.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point. Is we do know that the coaches are operating as the GMs in front office, but we do know that, you know, the trade window was heavily, I don't want to say it was regulated, you know, until when they could make those trades. So we don't know really what an off season is going to be like. And I think another aspect of this is coaches being on the hot seat. If they are the GMs, who is actually, you know, in charge of whether these coaches are going to stick around? You know, maybe that's a league decision or the governing body that Josh Sims runs, you know, the as the head of lacrosse. But I think you bring up some good points. We really don't know. And, like I said, the draft bracket I think is a good idea. It's a good experiment for them to kind of try out. So a lot of unknowns. But that was just something I wanted to start off with, kind of that got me thinking as I was watching this game. It was interesting to think that, the Chrome, who were last place, you'd think that they'd want to reward them. Not, obviously you want them to have to earn that top pick, but if they're struggling throughout the season, it's almost like, are you doing them more harm than good? Sure. But anyway, to get to the actual game itself, you mentioned TD Ierlan might be on a lot of people's radar, and they mentioned that in the broadcast. And I don't know if Stephen Kelly was listening in, because they were linking TD to the Archers, and after they mentioned that on the broadcast, he went off. He went over 83% from the faceoff X, had 11 ground balls, definitely a big producer for fantasy. The only person that ended up picking him in our fantasy league ended up winning it because he had 14.5 points. But what else did you see from this game? This Archers team, I don't know if they were just benefiting from playing a kind of a wearied Chrome team, but they looked like, even without their star player in Schreiber, that they were willing to kind of still give it their all, and they're determined to get this top pick.
They definitely got a contribution from a variety of players. I think that was probably a necessity when it comes to the fact that Tom Schreiber was unable to play because of his shoulder injury. Good to see him at the games this weekend. He was in a sling, but it sounded like he was feeling better, which is great to hear for him come the NLL season for the Toronto Rock. But yeah, no, they definitely were well-rounded from that extent. They had points from Will Manny, Ryan Ambler, a guy that I've been talking about, got on the scoreboard for 2 goals and an assist. Will Manny, obviously, like I said, had a day. So well-rounded affair from the offensive side of things, and pretty strong games from both goalies as well. I was curious what they would do if they'd stick with one goalie after that loss last week, or whether they'd stick with the tandem, and they did. And both goalies saved more than they let in, so it was a strong day for those in cage, and the defensive side of the ball as well for the Archers. So it'll be a fun matchup next week in Philly against 2 teams that are pretty strong when it comes to the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball in the Atlas. So I'm excited to see that game, to see who gets that first overall pick.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the goalie tandem on the Archers, but another goalie that got a shot, his first start of the season was Alex Reddy for the Chrome, and you got to see it firsthand. You think he's going to be the goalie of the future going forward for the Chrome?
I don't see why not. He had a tough day early on for the Chrome, getting yanked in the first quarter for Brett Queener, but came back once Queener took a pretty hard shot off his helmet, and he was under concussion protocol, and he held strong for the end of that game. So I don't see why not. He was a fantastic goalie during his time in Denver, and I talked to him after the game for a little bit to see what he's looking forward to going forward, and kind of to review his first career start. So let's give a listen.
It was fun. First and foremost, getting my first start,
Yep.
and then we were in it the whole way. Just gave away a couple possessions there at the end. They got those last couple there. Obviously, going back to the drawing board a little bit, figure out some things I need to work on, and get better at going into next year, so I give myself a good shot.
Some great stuff from Alex, so we appreciate you getting that interview. And then Dan Arestia, who was also with you, actually got some post-game sound from the Archers roster as well. We had Will Manny and Scott Ratliff and Coach Chris Bates, so let's hear what they had to say after the game.
So big win for you guys. You get the chance to play for another week together. Just thoughts on getting that opportunity to keep playing?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Tonight was win or go home in a way, and I think we just had a lot of fun tonight. And getting another opportunity to play for the first pick, it's why not win it, right? Why not get the first pick and get the best guy that we need? And that's the coolest part about this draft with 6 teams. There's a lot of good players coming out of college next year, and every team needs something specific. And I think our team and our staff will start talking about what we specifically need, and then if we win, we get the first. If we don't, we get the second. So I think both are pretty good, and we'll have a lot of fun next week.
I got to ask you, it sounded like when the game started you had a little personal chirping section down there. Is that
Yeah.
just me?
I mean, it
looked like you were enjoying a couple of those first quarter goals.
People were saying, Utah this, and I was just like, I don't even play there. I coach there. Like, you're sitting in the stands here watching me. So I don't know. You paid to come watch me play. So no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I didn't even hear half of it. It's so loud in here, and I mean, I was pretty dialed in tonight. So yeah, I'm just glad we had a nice team win, and guys stepped up for Tommy and Jackson, and that's what a good team does.
I was going to say, you did seem like you were dialed in. You know, I think you had four goals when you finished with. And, you know, you're coming in without Tom, coming in without Jackson. Are guys feeling it a little bit? Like we all got to maybe put out a little more, try and make up for these guys not being here?
I think, but we don't show it. We just know the next guy up, and Tommy's been there, and Jackson came to practice today, and I mean, that's what a good team does. They just step up when guys go down, and I mean, I trust everybody on this team. And yeah, do we have to get on? As an older guy on this offense, right, and on this team, honestly, it's had to get on a couple of guys tonight to like pick their speed up and whatnot. But that's just part of the game, and the coaching in me. But yeah, everyone stepped up, and that's what we're all about.
You saw Tom over there on the sideline. Is he just like immediately in coaching mode over there?
He said a couple of things. He's talked in the locker room briefly, but I think he just kind of sat in the back seat a little bit and wanted to enjoy watching and let us do our thing. I mean, we were pretty dialed. I mean, there was sloppy play for a couple minutes, but that happens in every game. But I think our offense did pretty good tonight.
We felt like at halftime we had done a good job of kind of weathering a really bad first quarter, and we just talked about, you know, we're not playing quite at our speed. And so the message was just find that next gear, get going a little bit faster, and play a little bit smarter, and we'll be in good shape. Obviously, we'd like to be in the other game. It's a little bit hard to swallow to have to go there and see two teams compete for what you want. But again, at the same time, special group of guys. We talked about it before the game today. We're playing for each other. We're playing for the chance to spend another weekend together. And obviously, Philadelphia's a great lacrosse city, so to get to go play there is pretty cool. This whole season, this league has been a truly incredible experience, and obviously Paul and Mike deserve a ton of credit for that. And so to just have another weekend to experience it, we're not ready for it to be the off season. We love this stuff, and so we're just excited to get there and get to do this again and close the season out.
We talked about being a character win and helping it define who we are as an organization. So I give our guys credit. That was a battle. Chrome played their butts off all game, and we did too. So we're excited to get a W.
And now you had to prepare and get ready for this game without Tom Schreiber, which obviously that's an impact for anybody to lose a player of that caliber. Did it change the way you guys got ready? Were you trying to just stick to the same things, just we got to do it without Tom? Or
we try to stay consistent, but you know as well as I, you don't replace Tom. He just creates so much offense for everyone else. But we stayed within the system, and guys kind of executed and put the ball in the back of the net. It wasn't pretty, but at the end of the day, we put 11 goals on the board, and that was enough to win. So
yeah, and you got good contributions from guys like Ryan Ambler, from Danny Ipe today, who maybe don't do as much of that initiating and dodging for you guys as they have. Today is not as much in the past, but
Davey Imola has a big goal getting in the lineup. Will Manny obviously put some in the back of the net. So yeah, we needed contributions from other people to rack up some points. So I'm really happy for those guys.
And are you thinking this is going to be the lineup you go with again in a week? Who knows? Who
can
tell?
We'll see. We're just, again, the theme is we wanted to keep playing together, so we're just excited to go to Philly and battle one more week.
Great. And now, have you started thinking about guys in this draft class? It's a deep class. Where you want to go? What you thinking?
I'm not. We're thinking about a lot of them, and there's a lot of good ones. So at the end of the day, you're going to get 2 or 3 good ones. It's that deep a class. So we're excited, but our motivation is just play lacrosse and win as a unit, and that's a nice byproduct. So hopefully that we'll get that as a result.
Yeah, so some great stuff. We appreciate Dan helping us out this week, and it was nice for you to be there in person, Adam. I'm gonna be there in Philly this coming weekend, so we each get a chance to get that PLL playoff experience. But let's go into the biggest game of the weekend, which was obviously the Redwoods versus the Chaos. We knew this matchup was going to be tough going into it, but to me, the Chaos just seemed overwhelmed. And again, they were doomed by a really bad third quarter. But what did you see from this firsthand, Adam?
I have never seen the Redwoods defense play so well and be dominant as they were in this semifinal matchup. I mean, holding one of the most prolific scorers in the league in Connor Fields to 0 points, 0 goals was a fantastic job by Matt Landis, Garrett Epple, and the rest of that squad. It was so interesting. I just felt like kind of being there in person, being front row for it. never seemed to really be in doubt for me. And it was a fantastic job by that defense. Timmy Troutner coming up huge. I know we had that debate about Rookie of the Year last week, but I think it has to have the nod just with how successful he's been in these playoffs. And it was just a fantastic effort from all facets of the game for the Redwoods. A shame to see the top-seeded team in the Chaos go out this way with 2 straight losses in the playoffs. But it was a fantastic effort by the Redwoods, and I'm really excited to see what they do next week. And as I said, the defense was really able to hold that potent Chaos offense. I talked to Coach Nat St, Laurent, and all 3 of the starters for the Redwoods, including player of the game, Landis, about how they were able to hold Connor Fields and that Chaos offense in the second half.
Hey, I have Coach Nat St. Laurent here. Tell me about that last game that you just played, and what was it like holding the Chaos to their lowest scoring total of the whole season?
Just so proud of our guys. I always am. We feel really strongly that we've got the best defense in the league, and this is the second or third time this year that we've held the team to just 1 goal the entire second half.
Yep.
And what Matt Landis did against arguably the best player in this league was ridiculous. And I told him after the game that we named that parts on the field, Landis Island, and we put him out there as part of the game plan. We were not going to slide to him. We were not going to give him any help. And when we did, we knew we had to squeeze on the other side. So Timmy was phenomenal again. Good luck voting for Rookie of the Year, by the way.
Absolutely, right?
Good luck with that. I don't know who gets to vote for that, but good luck.
Absolutely. And what's kind of your goal going forward for the championship game? And anything kind of sticks out to you right now going forward?
We just got to make sure that we don't, we can't, it's a new game, it's a new season, nothing else matters. It's 2 of the best teams in this league playing for the first championship. We got to make sure that we worry about us. That's when we're at our best. We can't think about what's happened in the past. We can't think about who's playing, who's not. We can't think anything like that. We got to worry about us, and that's when we're at our best.
Landis did a really good job on Connor. I think we put a lot of trust in Landis' one-on-one matchup, and he plays super good disciplined defense. And Connor kind of thrives on kind of baiting guys into getting their feet in the wrong positioning, and takes advantage of them. And we kind of he crushed us the first 2 games, right? He did a really good job against us, and we kind of had to hunker down and figure out some strategy. But it feels good. The first half they got us, but we came back up. We made some adjustments. Our offense played really well. Greg Beast did a really good job at the face-off X, and we controlled possessions, and we played really well 6-on-6.
Any thoughts going into the championship next week in Philadelphia?
Yeah, we're 1-1 with the Whipsnakes, but the one game we beat them by 1, and the second game, they got us by a large margin. But we're hot, right? We're won 3 in a row. We're playing at a very high level, and I like the momentum on our end. So, we need to prepare for everything the Whipsnakes have. They have a great offense, great attackman in Matt Rambo, and Nardella does a great job at the face-off X. So, we've got to hunker down and figure out how we're going to play them.
I'm here with Redwoods' Garrett Epple. Talk about the game that just happened and how you guys were able to hold Connor Fields to no points and the Chaos to 1 goal in the second half.
Well, first of all, we played team. We scouted them really well. We knew what we were doing going in. They kind of run the same set over and over. They hit me, really good guys, but I think we forced them their weak hand. We forced them skinny. Yep. And that kind of played in our hands. So, we guarded the ball really, really well. And then Landis did an incredible job on Fields. I mean, he's a great player. He's probably want to win the MVP in this league. And, Landis, that's his bread and butter, guarding guys like that. So got to give him the day. Landis, he won the day, and that just worked out.
Absolutely. Talk about going into next week in the championship. Thoughts on that going forward?
I mean they're a good team. They're a lot like us. They got a lot of guys that they play together in college with, and they're a real team. You know what I mean? So they're guys who kind of know their role. They do it. They do their role, right? They do their job. And they have a lot of pieces together. They're a really good team. It's going to be a really good game. So, same thing. We got to scout them and get ready for the game.
I'm here with Matt Landis, Redwoods defender, who was able to hold Connor Fields to no points on the day and an overall 1 goal in the second half for the Chaos. How were you able to do that, Matt?
And it was a team effort. Everybody did their job, and I know a lot of the attention might go to the matchup itself, but I had support of all the other 5 defensemen behind me, and Timmy Troutner and Nat, and everybody did a great job on ball. Everybody got a lot of great ball pressure, and we were sliding around and moving across the field 6-on-6. I thought we did an incredible job. They only scored in unsettled situations, so I'm really proud of the whole team, the whole defense as a unit.
Thoughts on going in next week's championship game?
The Whipsnakes are a really good team. They've proven that all season long, and they really took it to us last game, no doubt about that. So, we're expecting ourselves to come out and give our best game and do everything we can. But just right now, we're enjoying this win, and we're going to celebrate as a team, and then tomorrow we're going to focus up and get ready for the West.
And Dan also had the opportunity to talk to Coach Andy Towers and Connor Fields after the game to get their reaction to the semifinal matchup against the Redwoods.
You know, not the way you guys wanted it to go. Yep. You guys seem to get out of a little bit of a slow start today, maybe a little struggle trying to get some ground balls won.
Yeah, well, listen, they jumped out on top. They fouled us. We took advantage of that. Came back. It was 6-6 at halftime. I felt great going in the locker room. I felt great coming out of the locker room. You know, we had a couple situations where we played really good defense, and you know, I thought a couple of soft calls. I'm not going to say bad calls, just a couple of soft calls that gave them the ball back, and then they scored immediately on those possessions. And, you know, it's tough to be a referee in this league, and I think the officials do an awesome job. I think they've done an awesome job all year long. You know, but certainly when those type of calls go against you, you feel, you know, a little frustrated. I'm not going to say they were bad calls. I'm just saying they were close, right? They were close calls, and they were able, Redwoods, to their credit, were able to score 2 goals off of that. And you know, it's tough when you play good defense and then they get the ball back and then you got to play defense again. But again, to their credit, they hit some great shots in the second half, and I felt like we did a pretty good job of running our offense. You know, but Timmy Troutner stepped up when it mattered most and played a great second half. So credit them; they deserved it.
You guys, I don't think you got a point from Connor Fields today, which I think is, you know, remarkable. Obviously, Redwoods did a great job there. Do you think that kind of hurts? He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for you guys a little bit. Is it tough to get things going when he's not going so well?
Well, you know what? I think Connor played fine. I don't necessarily equate not getting any points with playing a good game or a bad game. I know a lot of guys that have scored a ton of points that haven't played very well, and I know guys that have, you know, not had any points that have made the offense go. And I thought that when we ran our offense, I thought Connor was very efficient and played very well. You know, at the end of the day, though, you know, they stepped up in the second half and they were able to capitalize on their opportunity. They hit some great shots. I mean, they hit some really, really good shots. And you know what? They're going to have to shoot really good shots to beat Blaze Reardon. You know, I think he's the best goalie in the world, but Timmy Troutner played a great second half. And I felt like in the end, you know, we had some opportunities, but we just couldn't capitalize.
And then now, obviously, the season's over for you guys. Not the way you wanted it to end, but, you know, looking back sort of at this first year for you guys in the PLL with this group, just final, like, retrospective a little bit. What'd you say to your guys at the end, you know?
I told them that I was proud of them, and I told them that they have a lot to be proud of. It wasn't the ending that we wanted. You know, we didn't accomplish our goal of winning the PLL championship. But, you know, we were 7-3 in the regular season. We earned the #1 seed, and while the last few games didn't go the way that we wanted them to, still, you look at the body of work, and they've got a lot to be proud of. So, you know, we will watch the final like everybody else next week, and, you know, look forward to coming back next summer.
Obviously, you know, tough night for you guys. It seemed like you just got out of a slow start, found rhythm for a little bit, but couldn't ever really kind of get things going.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, we definitely had a slow start. Made a comeback, though, tie game going to halftime, so we can't really blame the slow start. I think it's just, I think at the end of the day, it comes to them just capitalizing on their opportunities and us not. Credit Tim and Nat. He played great, but you know, I think some of them we gave to him, and it really hurt us in the end.
Now, you mentioned Tim. You guys, it's not like you were getting bad looks throughout the game. You guys had some quality looks, and Tim was just making great saves. Just as an offense, does that start to weigh on you, especially in a game where there's, you know, quick possessions and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does. With the quick possessions and when you're falling behind, you know, those are the type that, you know, momentum swingers that kind of bounce you back and get you back in the game. But yeah, I mean, he made some great saves, and then the defense played great in front of him. So yeah, and I mean, I just think, yeah, if we could have capitalized on a couple more and kind of swung momentum in that third, beginning of the fourth, it would have been you know, a different game.
The Redwoods managed to keep you off the score sheet, which is not something that's easy to do. How does that, you know, as the game's going on, are you talking to teammates like, I'm having a hard time, you guys got to get it going? Are we trying to pick each other up a little bit? What's the vibe like when you're having a hard time sort of getting your way into the book?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really focus on, you know, one person getting in the book or not. It wasn't really a big deal for me. I think I had some, you know, some chances to score, and I made some looks that, you know, other people could score, but it just wasn't my day-to-day. They played a great game, but at the same time, we kind of beat ourselves too.
And then just, you're now one season of the PLL in the books. The ending isn't necessarily the one you guys wanted, but just sort of, can you give me like a little bit of a retrospective? Like, what's this year just been like for you as a player in this new league, this touring model? Just how's it been?
I mean, it's been awesome. You know, it's been very intense and very professional. You know, it reminds me, you know, of that feeling where you're, you know, playing in college and practicing every day, and then, you know, get on the field, playing so hard for your teammates. I think, you know, everyone's doing it out there and just playing for each other, and we all want to win too. We're all competitive, so I think it was a really great first year, and I'm excited to see, you know, what this has for the future.
You know, I'm looking at this chaos results from these past weeks. Obviously, they've lost 3 straight, but their production has really been dropping off. You know, ever since the bye week, you know, they scored 13 in week 8, and then they eventually scored 11 in another win against the Archers, and then it was 9 to end the season against the Atlas, and then 7-7. I just don't understand if, you know, maybe, I don't know if Josh Byrne and maybe Miles Thompson were, you know, completely healthy. They were dealing with injuries. Maybe the rest of the league kind of started to figure them out, you know, on transition and kind of nip that in the bud or play them at their own game. Which, you know, the Redwoods kind of have done, or maybe are we expecting too much from Connor Fields? You know, obviously he's one of the better players in this league, but he, you know, has had a lot of turnovers, especially recently, and I think, you know, you get somebody like Landis locking him down, and you could just see how dependent that offense was on him. You know, Josh Byrne, you know, made a few moves, but, I mean, they're lucky they even scored 7. They had that one turnover that Miles Jones took to the rack, and a few other, you know, big defensive breakdowns that led to the chaos goals. But I don't think this one was really in any doubt, you know, after the Redwoods got off to that 5-1 run. So, yeah, they're definitely the hot team right now. Disappointing way for the Chaos to go out. You know, they were missing, too, Deemer Class, which he's been kind of quiet since then, but I'm not sure why he was a scratch. It seemed like he was a healthy scratch. Maybe they decided to go in a different direction, add some other guys on the roster, but I don't know, very, very disappointing the way Coach Towers' squad ended. I really thought they would get up for this game, but yeah, I think they might have some questions still to fill on the midfield side, and you know, maybe they add another attackman, change of pace. You know, they have a lot of similar guys in Thompson, Byrne, and Fields. You know, they're guys that are creative, they're feeders, but maybe they need a shooter. Maybe they need a guy like Mac O'Keefe. Will he still be around by the time it drops to the 4th pick, which is what the Chaos will come out with? Who knows? But, yeah, I don't know. It's a disappointing end because I really thought they were poised to make a playoff run. Again, though, like you said, they ran into a hot team in the Redwoods, and they're rolling. But I think the Whipsnakes are going to be ready to go. I don't think they're going to miss a beat. The Whipsnakes are by far the most talented offensive team out there. And you could probably make a case that the Redwoods are the most talented on defense. So I think we're primed for another juggernaut matchup in this inaugural PLL championship.
It's just a fun matchup, too, for a couple reasons. You know, we talked about the Redwoods picking it up at the right time. I mean, if you think about it, most of their offensive production are coming from players that weren't on the team prior to the start of the season. You know, Jules, we talked about, came from the Whipsnakes, which is an intriguing storyline in and of itself. Ryder Garnsey was in the player pool at the beginning of the season. How crazy is that to think with how prolific his player production has been since he's joined the Redwoods. So just those 2 names alone are intriguing stories, and they're kind of coming at it from a different angle than a Whipsnakes team that has pretty much been together for the whole season, whether a couple pieces here and there, but predominantly have been the same team. So another awesome opportunity to watch some PLL lacrosse. Last one for this inaugural season, but I'm super excited.
It makes for another great storyline. You know, you had the first game. Redwoods defeated the Whipsnakes to hand them their first loss of the season in the game where Jules played his former team. So, you know, that was an interesting storyline. And then we can't forget, only a few weeks ago, the Whipsnakes almost knocked the Redwoods out of the playoffs, essentially, you know, with that dominant performance that really hurt their goal differential, and they had to have a big day against the Chrome to even make it to the playoffs. But, yeah, they're looking like, you know, a team that can go toe-to-toe with the Whips this time. I definitely think it'll be closer this time in Philly. But, yeah, no, we're in for a treat of a matchup, and I'm excited, and I'm excited to be there in person. But let's go to our first break, and then when we come back, we'll talk some PLL Fantasy Lacrosse. Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. We've been using Anchor for our podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast so it sounds great and send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Better yet, they connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're interested in starting a podcast, download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, so welcome back. So we just got done talking about the PLL games this weekend. Let's look at some more individual performances, though, in regards to our fantasy lacrosse. So for some top performers we had at face-off, Stephen Kelly, who we mentioned earlier, 14.5 points. I mean, he did everything in this game. He had a goal, he had an assist, he had a caused turnover, he went 15 for 18 at the face-off X, and he scooped up 11 ground balls, so he got 14.5 points, and like I said, the only person to pick him was 2K Flexing, who was our winner this week, and he ended up, winning pretty much off of Kelly's performance, so kudos to him for picking Kelly and the winning roster. But some other guys that had some big days were Justin Gutterding. He had 8 points at attack. Will Manny also had 8. Jordan Wolf and Marcus Holman both had 4.5. So those two teams had a lot of production from their attack. At midfield, Miles Jones had 6.5, and then Brent Adams and Danny Ipe had 3.5. Really bad day for the midfielders for fantasy lacrosse. So it was really tough to pick. But if you got at least 2 or 3 points, you were sitting pretty lucky, unless you got Miles Jones on your team, because no one really did exceptionally well. Shows there was a big team effort for these teams this playoff weekend. And then at LSM in defense, Joel White had 5.5 points. Scott Ratliff had 3, and John Sexton also had 3. And then rounding out with goalie, you had Troutner with 5.5 and Blaze with 5. So overall, not as much scoring as the last week, with the exception of Kelly. But a great fantasy week. We were really getting down to the wire, and we have a really tight race at the top in terms of totals. And some disappointments this weekend. Of course, were Connor Fields, who only had half a point off of 1 ground ball. Landis effectively shut him down. Jared Newman had 1.5, so that's better than his 0 from last week. But still, you would have liked to see him maybe get a 2-point goal or another caused turnover. And then Jules and Ryder only had 2. Again, with how the production was this week, you're not too upset with them at least getting 2 points, but you would have liked to see a little bit more. For example, Matt Cavanaugh on that attack ended up getting 4 points for you, so you were better off taking him. And then Connor Farrell, a lot of people thought he was going to go out and dominate Kelly, and he laid an egg and only got 1.5 points. So, again, a very interesting, unexpected fantasy lacrosse week, but that's kind of how we like it. And then congrats to 2K Flexing, who ended up with 45.5 points to win this week. He's going to get a fantasy lacrosse hat, and he, as well as a lot of other people, are still eligible for the Epic All-Star Game gloves that we'll be giving away as our grand prize. So if you've been submitting rosters these past 2 weeks, make sure you submit another one this week to give yourself a chance at that. If you haven't submitted a roster yet, there's still time to, because we have a fantasy lacrosse t-shirt that will be up for grabs for the winner from week 3. So definitely jump on board with that, and it is our final week, but we've really enjoyed putting it on for you guys, and we hope you guys enjoyed it as well. But that wraps up our fantasy lacrosse. So we're going to go hear another word from our sponsor real quick, and then let's dive into this MLL recap, Adam. All right, welcome back. So now it's time to talk the MLL, that is wrapping up its season. This was the second to last week. We have one final week of the regular season, and then we're going into the playoffs. But Adam, let's talk about this Bayhawks Outlaws game. We both picked the Bayhawks, and they both came out top, but it was a close one. These two teams are pretty evenly matched. I still think I would give the edge for the Outlaws just because of the talent they have, but what did you really see from this game that you think is going to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to see in the playoffs?
Yeah, you saw kind of a tale of two halves potentially. When you saw that Chesapeake Bayhawks hold that Outlaws to 0 goals in the first quarter, you thought, oh, here we go. We have to see if this is the old Outlaw squad or the squad that lost a few in a row a few weeks back. But they were able to come back and hold the Bayhawks to no goals in the third quarter coming out of half. So strong back and forth contest in that third that fourth period, the Bayhawks were able to edge out the Outlaws by 2 goals in that period to take that 1-goal lead. I'd have to say the biggest storyline of the day was the play of Lyle Thompson, who in the game broke the single-season goal record and single-season point record for the Bayhawks, which was previously held by Bayhawk great Mark Millen. So big day for Lyle in breaking these records. Super successful season for him. We'll talk about next week MLL award winners, but he's going to be at the top of my list for a few next week. So stay tuned to hear about that. But this is a big win for the Bayhawks to stay atop the leaderboard when it comes to the standings. And with 1 week of regular season left, there's a bunch of scenarios when it comes down to playoff seeding wise. But we all know where they're playing in Denver next once the playoffs start. So the seeding, it'll just depend on who plays who. But it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. And big day for Lyle and the rest of that Bayhawks defense, too. They were able to hold the Outlaws to 1 goal in that fourth quarter after kind of getting lit up in that third quarter. So, and great play by Jesse Bernhardt on the defensive side of the ball, and Brian Phipson-Cage for the Bayhawks, who started over Nico Amato. So, interesting to see what the future holds for both of these squads going forward.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned Lyle Thompson. He's got another record that he could potentially break this upcoming weekend. He has 73 points, which is 5 shy of Rob Pennell's MLL season record. U.S. Lacrosse Magazine put out that when the Bayhawks meet Denver next week, he'll have a chance, to break that record. He's 5 shy, and get this, he's been averaging 5.67 points per game versus Denver. So, a very good shot that he could break this record and make some history. So, we'll be watching to see if he can do that. If not, it's still a phenomenal season for him and the Bayhawks, and I know they definitely have their eyes on the prize of winning the championship, probably more than individual awards. But so these teams are looking like they're sitting pretty good right now. Even the Outlaws, despite the loss, and they'll get a rematch next week. But this other game could not have been more lopsided. It was the Cannons versus the Blaze, and we both picked the Cannons in this game, and we both kind of talked about this last week, is how the Blaze's big weakness is right now on defense and the goalie play. They can score goals. We know that. They have a very talented attack in Stotts, in Shane Jackson, Mark Matthews. They have a bunch of guys that can score, but the goalie play has just not been there. And in this game, you had Chris Madelon only making 5 saves, letting in 9 goals, and Max Edelman, the rookie who they've kind of tried to see if they could go with, he only made 4 saves and let in 8 goals. They both took a half of the game, and they both kind of underperformed here. So I don't know. This is kind of a glaring weakness. I'm a little worried for the Blaze going into the playoffs, and this is their first time ever making the playoffs. But I know they're probably not content with just getting there. I know they expect to make a run. So what do you think needs to really change for this Blaze team?
They are such an up and down team, and it's difficult to say what that play is going to be. Obviously, you talked about the play in cage, and they haven't found consistency since earlier in the season, and it'll be interesting to see what type of matchups they bring to this final week of the regular season to determine who they play. It just didn't seem like they were ready to be out there this week, to be honest with you. And it was kind of like I talked about the Redwoods. I felt like it was going to be their victory the whole time. Same with how the Boston Cannons played, and it just didn't seem like they were up for it in Atlanta, and I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Kind of at a loss for words about what to expect from them. They seem, out of the playoff teams, to be the worst right now. I don't know if that's how you feel as well. I could be.
No, it is. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like I could be eating crow come the playoffs, and they could reel 2 games off and be holding that Steinfeld Cup. But I'm not sure what they need to do right now, other than just be more consistent in all facets of the game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And again, I think it really says something to have a solid goaltender, because you talk about the 2 teams that aren't in it right now. Austin Kaut has been shaky, for the Lizards, and the Rattlers didn't have Sean Scanoni until really the second half of the season when they went on that run. So I think it's just something to be said about having a strong goaltender, and that's why I really like the Outlaws, with Dylan Ward and, this Cannons team, because Nick Morocco had a great day in cage. He made 13 saves, only letting 7. He's been playing really, really good lacrosse lately, pretty much the whole season, honestly. But, that's where I think their strength really lies. And, Kevin Reisman went around 50%, a little over 50% too at the X, which, if I'm Alex Woodall, I gotta give my team more possessions. I gotta win more than 12 for 30 on the day. So, I think they're just a little, like you said, inconsistent, and I think that could be their Achilles heel. And on the flip side, this Cannons team is looking really scary. And we talk about they have a lot of offensive weapons too. I mean, all these teams really do, but they've gotten a lot of production from guys who you maybe not would have expected. Rylan Reese had 5 points in this game. He had 2 goals, a 2-point goal and an assist. And so, they're getting a lot of production from all over, and you can't discount, Mark Cockerton and Kyle Jackson, who have had phenomenal seasons, and Zed Williams as well. So, I don't know. This Cannons team is looking like they're getting hot at the right time. They're kind of like the Redwoods for me, where they're, they kind of have everything all together. They know which kind of game they want to play, and I think they're going into the playoffs with some momentum.
From the goalie side of things, they have the capabilities. Chris Madelon what has been a strong goalie for a long time, and heck, goalies can get hot at the right times, and he could potentially win them a championship on his play alone in cage. So he's been really strong since his time in North Carolina, and I don't see why he can't bounce back. And I mean, he was in the All-Star game this year, right? So he clearly is a strong keeper, and he just needs to be more consistent, kind of not just at that end, but kind of the whole squad. So.
Yeah, I won't hold my breath, though. I just haven't seen enough out of him all year. And I think that's why they tried out Max Edelman, but I think it's getting a little too late. I think you do still stick with Madelon just because he's been there before, but I don't know. I like I said, I haven't really seen it yet, so I'm sleeping right now on the Blaze, but maybe they'll prove me wrong.
Hopefully you don't get burned.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that kind of leads well into our game picks. But you went 4-0 this week, Adam. I went 3-1. We are now tied at 40-33, so pretty good. We're both above 500. I don't think we'd want it any other way than to be tightly contested to the very end. So let's dive into these PLL games. We have the Archers versus the Atlas. Who are you picking in this one?
This one, I had a tough time kind of looking over the rosters and looking at previous contests between these two. I'm going to take the Atlas in this one. I think the biggest difference, while the two-headed monster in cage for the Archers has been really successful, Jack Kincannon for the Atlas, who was my pick for goalie of the year, and he's been arguably the best all season, and I think he's going to be the big difference.
Yeah, I'm going to go Atlas as well. I think the Archers are just, still a little bit banged up. They beat the Chrome, but it was still only 12-10, and I think the Chrome are just a worse team, and I think they just took advantage of that. So I'm going to go Atlas as well. I think Paul Rabel wants to finish the season out strong on top. Again, you mentioned Kincannon's been playing well in cage, so yeah, I'm going to go Atlas as well. And following that, we have the championship. Who do you have winning in the championship, Whipsnakes or Redwoods?
This is for all the marbles. I know it's a big game, but I'm going to ride the train. Roll Woods. I think they're going to take this one. They just seem like they're on a mission. I talked to Nat St. Laurent after the game this past week, and he's driven. This team is driven. The defense is playing lights out, and I think that's going to be the big difference maker in this one. I think Troutner and that defense for the Woods maybe not be able to stifle that Whipstakes attack, but they're going to be able to hold them enough for Jules and the squad to get that. And I don't know if this is the case, but if depending on how long he's playing for, wouldn't it be an awesome opportunity for Kyle Harrison to go off in the sunset, finish his career with the first ever PLL championship, going Woods?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I really like this Redwoods team, but the Whipsnakes are too dangerous on all facets of the ball. We can't sleep on Bernlor. He's been great in cage. That defense is steady. The offense, anyone can score. I mean, you had Matt Rambo 2 weeks ago for the first week of the PLL playoffs, only had 1 point, and they still dominated the chaos because they have so many weapons. You're running Ben Reeves, a former Toronton winner from the box. You have Drew Snyder, Ryan Drenner. You have Connor Kelly. I mean, you have all these weapons on that team, and I just think they're the most talented group. I think, Coach Stagnita has really gotten them to buy into the culture. I think that's another team that's really developed a culture in such a short time. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk at all for either of these teams, but I have to give credit to the Whipsnakes for what they've shown throughout the season. And, I still keep going back to that game where they just whooped up on the Redwoods. And I don't think we're going to see that again this weekend, but I think that's just the capabilities that the Whipsnakes have. And so I'm going to give them the edge in this one. All right, well, going off of that, we have the MLL games this weekend. We have one on Friday, which is the Outlaws versus the Bayhawks. Who are you picking in this one, Adam?
In a rematch, they're in Annapolis this week, so the Outlaws don't have that home field advantage like we chatted about in the past. I'm going Bayhawks. I think they'll have the opportunity to hold that number 1 seed and go into the playoffs first overall. I'm going Bayhawks.
I'm going to go Outlaws. I think they're going to be itching for that top seed. I know it doesn't really matter in terms of home field advantage, but I think they're going to go out on a high note. I think it'll be another close one, so I'm going Outlaws. Now with these Saturday games, we have the Rattlers at the Cannons. Who are you picking in this one, Adam?
I'm going Rattlers. I think talking about kind of going off on the right note, strong way to end the season with how they played, coming off a loss last week. I'm going Rattlers.
Well, I'm going to go Cannons. I talked about them and how well they're playing and how Nick Morocco is doing in cage. So that's my squad right now. I think they're poised to make a playoff run. So I'm going to go Cannons finishing out the regular season strong. And then finally, our last game is the Blaze versus the Lizards. Adam, who are you picking in this one?
I'm going Blaze. I think they bounced back. I talked about the play of Chris Madeline. I think he has a bounce-back game, and it's only fitting that the Lizards finish the season on a low note, just how things have gone. Going Blaze.
I think the Lizards have shown a little bit more fight in recent weeks, so I don't think they're completely dead. But yeah, I think the Blaze desperately need something positive going into the playoffs. I don't think they want to limp in to the playoffs, and so I think they're gonna come out strong against the Lizards. So I'll pick Blaze as well. But yeah, that wraps up our podcast this week. We have an upcoming interview with Coach Stagnita that you guys can listen to later this week. Tiana Walper of the Brave, which will be next week, and we're gonna have some NLL draft coverage for you guys as well as we do a recap podcast with the Off the Crossbar podcast host Teddy Jenner. So he's a legend in the box game. He covers the NLL, and he's going to actually be on our show to kind of discuss the upcoming NLL season. So we're excited to have him on. And then final week of Fantasy Lacrosse, don't forget to fill out your rosters. Those epic All-Star Game gloves are still up for grabs as the grand prize. So it's your final week to get into the action. Let's go into overtime, Adam. What are you looking forward to most this weekend?
I think there's one option this week, right? And it's the PLL Championship. As exciting as MLL will be with these games, they don't mean as much. And the PLL Championship means everything. So you got to go with that.
Yeah, no, that's mine as well. And I'll be there in person to watch the game. I'll also be having Pro Lacrosse Talk trivia and giving away koozies out for all those cold beverages. So if you guys are tailgating at the game, I'll be walking around, having some trivia, and you guys can answer some questions to possibly win a free PLT koozie. So definitely look for me out there. Say hi. I'd love to talk some pro lacrosse with you guys. But that wraps up our podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you tune in next time to Pro Lacrosse Talk.